host Aditya Singh, and today we have a very special guest joining us, Professor Christina Chung from UC Santa Cruz. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Aditya. So I'm Christina Chung from UC Santa Cruz. As introduced, I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Computational Media. So my work lies in the intersection of HCI, human-computer interaction, and health. So I design systems to help people to get better knowledge about their health and well-being and help them to manage that in a more sustainable way.
Amazing, yeah. So let's just delve into your side of HCI and like how did you get involved with HCI? Was there like a specific moment that really pulled you in?
Yeah, so I actually, I was a software engineer. Like I was a computer science student by training. I did sort of a mix of computer science and business administration in college and then in master's degree. At the time, I didn't do any HCI research, but I went into industry. I was a research engineer at IBM. And so I did a lot at the time. Then I did a lot of sort of health and wellness related project. And then I realized that there's actually a lot of questions that I didn't know just by creating all these new products or like at one point I worked for IBM Research and then like looking at all the cool research, but still it feels like there's not a lot of the human elements in those products and research. I feel like the systems, so the kind of very common mentality for kind of tech companies often that if we have a really cool systems, if we have cool technology, we can definitely help people to get back on track on their health behavior or sort of to maintain their health in like creative ways. But I kind of, with that experience, I feel like that's kind of not true. Like, and then I feel like I need to learn better about how, for example, how people make decisions and what are some of the things that people prioritize. What are the challenges or needs when they think about, healthy behavior and healthy decisions. And so that's where I sort of discovered the field of HCI and then thinking about how I can learn better so that in the future when we design technology, we can remember that and design it better.
Oh, so like kind of considering like the ethical applications of HCI and like just like having like a human type of feelings or like knowledge around like implementing it around technology.
Yeah. And then also sort of like what are the real problems people are facing, right? Like I think we sometimes make assumption about, we think this is a challenge people are facing, but without talking to people, without actually understand how they manage their health, it is kind of hard to know what exactly that your technology can support and should be supporting.
Right. Yeah, that's very interesting. And so you offered like an overview of what HCI is and how you got involved with it. So like how would you in your definition explain to like a high schooler what HCI is?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So HCI stands for human computer interaction, right? But in reality, I think the word computer actually is not that accurate anymore because we are looking at a lot of different technology that doesn't look like computer, right? So I think it's really everything about how people interact with some sort of technology, whether that looks like computer, it could be your phone, it can be a sensor somewhere, it can be things like your hearing aid, right? That doesn't look like a computer, but has some interface to help you to achieve something that you want to do. It can also be something that helps you to interact with other people, not necessarily just about you and the technology itself, but also involving other people around it.
Right, that's a great explanation. So actually now delving more deeper into your actual research, you mentioned in one of your papers that technology often doesn't help patients feel supported, partially because doctors just don't have like the time to go over their personalized data. And, it really kind of stood out to me, especially since during COVID, a lot of people felt like telemedicine made care feel distant or robotic. So I'm curious, like, how do you think technology can help patients feel more understood or cared for, especially in like the long-term treatment?
Yeah, I think the studies, the paper you're referring to was one study that we did with helping people to share their self-tracking data with doctors.
Mhm.
Self-tracking here means like technology that helps you to keep track of your health data. So that can be food tracking, can be exercise tracking, can be sleep tracking. So we know we have a lot of great technology help us doing that. But like you mentioned, that in realities, we hear doctors saying like they don't have time to look at all this your Fitbit data for the last month or your food log for the last few weeks. And it feels to them, it feels like it's a quiz, like people
Mhm.
bring all sorts of different apps and diaries and they're just a lot. So it's the feeling is mutual, right? The doctor feels like they are incapable of making sense of those data, and the patients feels like they're being heard. So I think one of the things that we were trying to do in that study is actually trying to make that process easier so that they can surface things that are more essential that align with people's experience, right? Like for example, if you have in that study we're working with people with IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. So these people usually suffer from like symptoms like diarrhea, constipation for food triggers. So some food make them sick,
Mhm.
but they often don't know what it is, and it's also different from people to people. So it's not like you can just say avoid this peanuts, right? Like a peanuts allergy is a very kind of established kind of allergy, but for IBS, it's like less evident. And
Mhm.
so like a lot of time they would go to doctors and doctors would just say, how about we just do this elimination diet to try out, which means just you start from eating nothing but maybe something like chicken and rice, and then start adding things back week by week, and then to see if you have reaction to those food. And those are like really hard things to do and very painful. And also think about if you have to have social gatherings, if you hang out with your friends and then you tell them you can only eat rice and chicken, it's just like not very great experience. But if we have better ways to actually help people to say, hey, these are the things in that experience, and then we can correlate with the symptoms they have quickly in the doctor's office, then they can actually work on strategies quickly, and then they can also kind of help the doctors to see, you know, I'm actually suffering, like I'm not lying, right? Or like,
Yeah.
I'm not just like pretending this is our actual evidence of what my life looked like. And can we actually figure out something? And I think a lot of time those help both communicate better and then can spend their time more efficiently in like a very short clinical visit.
Right. Yeah, yeah, it's totally interesting because, yeah, as you mentioned, it's kind of like, I guess in a sense, it's like homework for the patients to actually like go ahead and just do it. So yeah, I think your approach is definitely novel and better. But yeah, so you've also studied how people use apps to track things like food, sleep, or symptoms. And so, so like, what's something that surprised you about how doctors or patients actually interact with these tools, especially like in a way the designers maybe didn't intend, or like, are there any like ways you guys didn't expect them to interact with it?
Yeah, so in the same study, there's one interesting example that I mention. So that study, the outcome of the studies is we created a photo journal and a visualization system. So we know like it's really painful just to write down everything you eat, and then you forget about it, and it's like really not fun. So and then people are taking photos for Instagram and everything. So we just think photo journal might be a good thing to do, and with some sort of visualization correlate with symptoms that we can help people to see that visually the correlation much easier. So in one example, we have patient and then their doctor sit down and then to look at their photos together. And this is a patient who suffered from IBS for a long time. That her diet is like extremely simple. She eats the same. You can see that from the picture. She eats the same banana, the same kind of granola bar, and the same coffee, kind of every day. But then the symptoms is still showing like over the place. Like whatever she eats, she still has symptoms. But then when then you might think, and then the doctors were originally pretty skeptical. Like they are not used to kind of photo journals, and then they feel like this doesn't have all the information that I know and I want to know, and might not be useful. But when she came in and then sit down, and then immediately she said, "Oh, it looks like all your pictures has a steering wheel in the background." So
Mhm.
in turns out, this patient was a social worker. So, she always eating on the go. She has to visit, her clients all over the place. She never has time to actually probably sit down and eat. And so that stress and then the kind of lifestyle actually might be a trigger for her symptoms instead of what food actually is a trigger. So they actually, actually sit down and think about kind of working on sort of stress management, or like thinking about kind of strategies that she can eat better, and in such kind of lifestyle, instead of saying, let's take more thing out of your diet, right? So like the quality of time can be better, and then maybe actually we can't be sure, but at least it's something they can try now instead of just saying taking food off your diet.
I see. So basically, you don't like just look at the food or sleep. You look at their like entire lifestyle, and then depending on their lifestyle, you like kind of, I don't know, like take specific like for example, I think you said you saw a steering wheel, so you were like you delved deeper into their personal lifestyle, and then you found out they eat more on like food on the go,
Yeah.
and then that's like that particular lifestyle affected them negatively.
Yeah. I think the kind of the high level takeaway is that food is a very complex matter,
Mhm.
right? It's not just about what you eat, but also how you eat it, where you eat it, and who you are with when you're eating it, and how you prepare for it, right? So and this kind of thing sometimes is hard to get into when you're sitting down with a doctor, because there's just so much going on. But with technology, that we can help surface some of this information and help doctor to see this context better, and so that they have a chance to actually figuring out what's going on in this person's life.
I see. Okay, yeah, that's definitely really interesting. Yeah, so yeah, and the next question I have is I've seen like a bunch of people, including my own friends and like even older family members, like get excited about tracking their meals and sleep initially, like tracking calories and stuff. But then eventually they'll give up because, the app might have been like too confusing or like too complex, or maybe they just didn't have time to log like their daily meals or whatever. And they just didn't feel like it was worth the while. So what would you do anything to like fix that, or like is it unfixable? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. I think the sort of high level question to that is, how long do we actually need to track to make that useful, right?
Hmm.
Do we always have to track forever, right? Or like how much data? And I guess another question is like, why do you track, right?
Hmm.
And then I think that answer should be tailored to what's the goal of tracking and how much data we need to be able to answer that question. What do we actually need to track? And so like instead, I think our technology has a tendency of like trying to get you on hook, right, to your technology, and then thinking that you should be using it for long. But I don't think that's the right mindset for this kind of applications. Like for example, if your goal is to figuring out what things they make make you sick, right? Then you probably don't have to track everything, but maybe there's a line of research in HCI that look at self-experimentation. So help you to structure the way that you track so that you can experiment on things that you suspect might be making you sick. If you are thinking about, I want to avoid sugar intake, right? And then maybe there are specific things you want to track. If your goal is to like run a marathon versus you're training for a marathon versus when you are trying to like explore the city, right? Like, then you might be tracking very different things in with different time frame. And I feel like our technology should be more open to these differences and be explicit asking about people's goal, and then having program to support those goals.
Yeah, that makes sense because obviously an athlete's going to be more inclined to tracking their goals. But yeah, essentially you're essentially saying like it depends on the individual's lifestyle and like how badly they need to like know specific things about their own lifestyle in order to like make it better.
Yeah. Yeah. And then also like I think something earlier is like how do we then help you to achieve that, right? The design of those systems and the way that we help you to get insights that you can use to achieve your goals. I think those are some directions I think technology can help and design can help. But I think the first that we should always remember is to think about why people are tracking and just don't just like expecting everyone would be using this technology forever. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. It ultimately depends on like the self-interest of the user itself and how inclined they are. But
Mhm.
yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, so like going based off this app, I know you said like it's really crucially more dependent on the individual itself, but are there like any specific aspects that you would add to your app to make it like ideal if you had no bounds? Like what would you do to make like a perfect health app?
I don't know if there's a perfect health app. Like,
Okay.
yeah, but I do think in a lot of the studies that we've been seeing, like, and in this one especially, I feel like having the human elements in there really makes a difference. Like if it's just an app that you deploy to people or have people download from app stores or Google Play, um, most likely they wouldn't do it for long, like you said. Even if the everything is tailored to them and designed to them. But like for example, if in the IBS study, it's really like having the opportunity that your doctors are going or patients who are going to sit down and then look at the data with them and help them to make sense of that together. That actually is I think it's a very crucial kind of part of that. Like for example, we have a lot of sort of mental health crisis now in the country and in the world, and we don't have a lot of the like healthcare professional who can help that's enough to help with. But I still don't think like a technology and app it should be replacing like mental health experts. I think they can help in some ways to mediate some of the things, maybe match you with a better professionals or maybe help you with sort of a day-to-day kind of things where you might only meet with your therapist or your experts in like once a week or once a month. But in between, the technology has a lot to help. But I think considering how technology can fit into those workflows where the patient and the provider would be interacting, I think it's one big part of kind of I think what health apps should be.
Oh, so I see. So you're saying basically we like absolutely need like a human element to make understanding of like the data. So like and based off that, do you think like with like the rise of artificial intelligence and stuff, do you think down the line like 10 years we would still need like humans, or would AI just do that for us? Like what do you think? It's a very subjective answer.
Yeah, I don't know. I would be very curious to see what happens in 10 years. For now, like we know there's a lot of challenges for AI to actually understand
Mhm.
things in context, right? They're pretty good at sort of, like, for example, if you have months of data that you don't know how to analyze, they're pretty good at sort of analyzing that. But like it's very challenging for that to situate in your personal experience in the personal context. And also like with sort of the within like particular sort of condition and then stuff like that. Um, I, I don't know what will happen in the year, and um, but I still feel like the human touch part is important. If if it's not about in the information it's providing, I think there's a lot of sort of emotional support and then sort of like the um, like um, like kind of the esteem, like self-efficacy, and then that kind of things that I don't know if it will come from technology, even with artificial intelligence that can feel very much like human. I think at least for now, I feel like that you still feel different when you're interacting with another person.
Right, yeah. So yeah, I definitely agree with you because AI like definitely cannot replicate human feelings and like resonate with you as well as like it's going to be harder for you to understand like the actual data that's being provided. So I totally agree with you. Um so yeah, and then for my next question, um so do you think most apps are built for like collecting data or just for like helping people? Or like what's missing?
Yeah, I think you're asking a great question. I think we have a lot of house apps, especially that has really good intention, but a lot of time that it does sort of give you the impression of collecting a bunch of data and it doesn't give back the same,
Mhm,
right? Like you, it's still hard for you or anyone to sort of understand what you can get out of this data. Um, I think with technology advances, we have more opportunity to help people to sort of, for example, correlating different data that you are collecting, or kind of understand your context better. Like for example, in the eating example, so whether you are eating in a restaurant versus you're eating at a work meeting, right? Like that actually makes a difference in terms of why you choose what you eat. um, or like if you're eating at a family gathering, like, and you might be eating things that you don't normally eat, but they are super meaningful for you, right?
mhm,
So those kind of things, I think we have better opportunities today with the technology we have, to understand and being able to situate that. But I also don't know if our technology are actually focused on the things that people care about.
mhm,
um like the example that we are saying, like um a lot of time that people don't make decisions because the calories are less, or like because it has less sugar, or are more nutritious, high proteins or something like that.
mhm,
People make decisions because these are the things they value, or like in COVID, like a lot of time people eat out or take out because they want to support local business, and it's not really about like if these are healthier or not, right? And so there are a lot of things that people care about. They are outside of just looking at the behavior itself, and I don't know if our current technology actually think about this when they are trying to understand your data or trying to make decision, make recommendation for you. And so I think there are opportunities to do that, but designers like us or people who are creating technologies, I think should be thinking about those a lot more, so that it doesn't feel like the systems or technology are just taking things out of you.
mhm.
Yeah.
Right. So like just working more like again on like the HCI, just working more on the humanizing part of lists so it doesn't feel like you're just collecting data.
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely don't. I definitely don't think the intention should be like treating people as like data collection tool,
Mhm.
right? Like
Yeah.
technology should be really serving people and what is important to them.
Right, right. Yeah, that I totally agree with that.
Mhm.
And now like coming to the ethical concerns or like ethical part of it, I guess, is like how can the designers for these tools make sure they're respecting the people's privacy, especially when they're like actually when they're doing the collection for like their data or when to make their apps more personal.
Yeah, I think there are several layers to this. I think privacy, in terms of what this technology actually getting out of you, but also kind of what they share with, right? Who they share with, right? Like I think there's always a concern. Like there are a lot of movements around sort of um, integrating this data so that you can get better insights. Like for example, integrating your exercise or sleep records with your electronic medical records, right? So that your doctors can actually correlate that alone whether we can do it well or not, because they are all very complex systems. But if you're thinking about that, when you were collecting your sleep data, have you thought about which doctor you would like to share with, or if your insurance companies are going to see them, right? Or like if your employer is actually sponsoring your insurance, like do they get to see them, right? And then so there's a lot of, I think, different levels of privacy that we need to think about if it's appropriate. And I think you mentioned about sort of AI, that also is the data that is required to train those models. Are you okay with that, right? And then oftentimes people don't think about it, or don't being asked if that's okay, right? And I think like in today's world, I feel like the data is just everywhere, and then it's really hard for someone to say no or even retract your data. Like if you stop using like Fitbit and app, like it's not trivial to say, hey, I want to pull out all my data that has been stored in your cloud server, right? And people might not remember doing that. And how do we make this all more seamless, and kind of thinking about this transition between different stages, or like sharing with different people a little more straightforward? I think that will help a lot with kind of making these privacy decisions.
Right. So basically essentially just like asking for their consent in the first place, like are they okay with like giving up their data for the collection?
Yeah, but also like I don't know if it's I think definitely ask in the beginning, but also like your situation might change, right? And then what was okay might not be okay in the new situation. So when do we maybe re-ask the questions, or like when do we, or like, I don't know, the company get purchased or like acquired by another company, right? It was okay when it was independent small company, but then once it became a bigger company, maybe you're not feeling okay. And then when do we ask those questions? I think it's a very complicated question, but I think that's something we should continue to think about.
Yeah, that makes sense, because like if a person is willing to give up their data at one point of time, it doesn't mean they want their data to just be like flowing around. If the company becomes like bigger and like it's more predominant, because they're just worried for the safety of their like data.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah, that's a really good answer. So yeah, I mean, just like to wrap it up, like what part of the future of HCI excites you the most, and like what worries you the most?
Yeah, I definitely, so a lot of the questions that we're looking at, like health problems or well-being problems, I feel like I don't know, fortunately, unfortunately, I think there are bigger problems than we individuals can solve. I feel like that's a lot of them is like a lifelong program, because like people have been working on promoting health management and health improvement and management like for a long time. We definitely are in a very exciting time where there's a lot of advancement in new technology and new sensors, right? The AI capability that allow us to kind of look at the problems in different angle. But I also sort of want to be sort of careful about thinking about this not just a technology problem, still that we still need to go back to think about what people actually want, and what they want might change over time too. Like what people, and for example, like the medical devices, medical, and then like what people, what's good, what's like what's healthy for food, or like the science behind those, or the science behind exercise also change over time. So I think keep those in mind, and then thinking about all these changes along with technology. I think it will be very important to thinking about how to design better systems and how to better support people's health.
I see. Yeah, that's an excellent answer. And then, for the youth, if you could give like one piece of advice, in technology that would impact humans broadly, or HCI in general, what would it be?
I don't know if I have advice for like specific technology use, but I would think um, like exploration. It's
Mhm.
a really good thing to do. Um, Even if you don't know if this is something that you would do, like for example, not all of you would be doing something related to technology. You might have other career aspiration. You might want to do different things, but sort of try to explore different things, try new technologies, and decide whether you and thinking about whether you liked it or not.
Mhm.
I think it's a very good thing, especially when you are in the time where there are a lot going on. And then you don't have to like everything, you don't have to sustainably use everything. But um, part of it's that it becomes like a literacy, and then read how people talk about things. There are always different perspectives of how what people think about, for example, social media, right? And so like read all sorts of ways people think about it, like positive, negative, and then different ways, and then decide kind of which side you want to take. And maybe that's not a side picking question. Maybe it's in different contexts you have different thoughts. And so like I think in those process to develop your own kind of opinions and ideas, and it's a very important process.
Right, so like developing critical thinking. I think it's like developing critical thinking is really important for like doing anything on the internet, because yeah, it's just important because like you never know which side is correct, so you need to form like objective opinions, or like that you think are right, and then that's how you're gonna go about it. But yeah, that makes total sense, and thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.